There's a habit you have that doesn't look like a problem. In fact, people respect you for it. They rely on you for it. They probably even admire you for it. But it's quietly exhausting you, and you don't even question it. You walk into a situation, and within seconds, your brain is already working. What's off here? What's about to go wrong? What needs to be handled? You don't wait for problems, you move ahead of them. And that feels like strength until you realize you never actually stop. Here's the part most people miss. Even when everything is fine, you're not fully there. You're slightly ahead of the moment, scanning, adjusting, preparing. And the scary part is that it feels normal because you've been doing it for so long that being at ease actually feels unfamiliar, almost suspicious, like something must be wrong if you're not actively managing something. So instead of relaxing, you look for what needs attention, even if nothing does. That's not random. That's a trained response. At some point in your life, you learn that stability isn't guaranteed, that things don't just work out on their own, that if you don't step in, something might slip. And your brain took that personally. It decided, from now on, I'll handle it. Not emotionally, but systemically. You became faster, more aware, more prepared than the people around you. And that worked. That's why it stayed. But here's the trade-off no one talks about. When you take responsibility for everything, you also take responsibility for things that were never yours. And over time, you stop noticing the difference. Everything feels like your job. Fix it, handle it, figure it out. And if you don't, there's a quiet tension, not panic, not fear, just a low, constant pressure, like something is unresolved. So you resolve it again and again and again until your entire life becomes a series of things you've prevented from going wrong. Which sounds impressive until you realize something. You don't actually know what would have happened if you didn't, because you never let it. That's where control becomes invisible. Not when you're fixing obvious problems, but when you're controlling outcomes that never needed controlling. You don't just control situations, you control perceptions. You think ahead in conversations, you adjust your tone, you choose your words carefully, not because you're fake, but because you're preventing friction, you're managing the experience. You don't just handle tasks, you handle people. You stabilize emotions, diffuse tension, keep things smooth. Again, it looks like strength, but internally it means you're always on, always calculating, always adjusting. And that has a cost, because when you're always managing everything, you don't get to just be in anything. And here's where it gets even deeper. You don't just control the outside world, you control yourself, your reactions, your emotions, your needs. You feel something and almost instantly you process it, analyze it, contain it, turn it into something manageable, because raw, unprocessed experience feels inefficient. So you fix that too. And this is where most people completely misunderstand you. They think you're strong, independent, put together. But what they don't see is how much of that is maintenance. You're not just living, you're constantly maintaining stability. And that's exhausting in a very specific way, not dramatic exhaustion, not burnout that forces you to stop, but the quiet kind, where you can keep going, but you're never fully at rest. This pattern doesn't just affect how you act, it affects what you allow. Because when you're used to controlling everything, you become uncomfortable with anything unpredictable, even good things. Support, care, help. Those things require something from you that you're not used to giving, letting go. And that's where the resistance actually is, not in asking, but in allowing. Because allowing means you don't know exactly how this will go. You're not managing the outcome. You're not optimizing the process. You're receiving. And for someone like you, that's unfamiliar territory. So what do you do instead? You stay in control, even when help is available, even when support is right there, even when things could be easier. You default to, I'll handle it. And most of the time you're right, you can handle it. But it's not the real question anymore. The real question is, do you have to? Because ability and responsibility are not the same thing. And somewhere along the way, those two got fused together for you. If I can do it, I should do it. That rule will drain you slowly, quietly, consistently, until handling everything starts costing more than it's worth. And there's one more layer to this that's easy to overlook. When you've been in this pattern long enough, you stop measuring your life by how you feel and start measuring it by how well everything is functioning. Did things go wrong? No. Did you handle what came up? Yes. Did you stay composed, effective, reliable? Of course, on paper, everything looks solid, but internally, something feels slightly off. Not bad enough to alarm you, not strong enough to stop you, just a quiet sense that you're always slightly disconnected from your own experience, like you're living your life one step ahead of it instead of inside it. And that creates a very specific kind of emptiness, not because your life lacks meaning, but because you rarely let yourself fully feel it without filtering it first. Even positive moments get processed. Something good happens, and instead of just experiencing it, part of your mind immediately starts analyzing it, stabilizing it, making sure it lasts, or preparing for when it might not. You don't just enjoy things, you manage them. And over time, that makes it harder to feel genuine satisfaction, because satisfaction requires something you're not used to giving yourself. Permission to stop adjusting, to stop improving the moment, to stop optimizing the experience, just to let it be enough as it is. And that's uncomfortable because enough feels like a loss of control. So you keep going. You keep refining, anticipating, improving, fixing, even when there's nothing clearly broken. And here's where it starts to quietly impact your relationships. Because when you're always in this mode, people don't always feel met. They feel managed. They feel like things are smooth, stable, functional, but not always real. Not because you're being inauthentic, but because you're filtering yourself before anything fully comes through. You're present but slightly guarded, engaged but slightly controlled. And most people can't explain it, but they can feel it. The irony is, the thing that makes you so reliable is the same thing that can create distance. Because real connection doesn't come from perfect regulation. It comes from moments where things aren't fully managed, where reactions aren't optimized, where there's a bit of unpredictability, a bit of rawness, a bit of, this is just how I am right now. And that's exactly what your system has been trained to avoid. So this isn't just about doing less, it's about allowing imperfection to exist without immediately correcting it. Let a conversation be slightly awkward without fixing it. Let someone misunderstand you without rushing to clarify everything. Let a situation unfold without stepping in too early. Let yourself feel something without immediately turning it into something more controlled. These are small moments, but they matter because they slowly retrain your system to understand something new, that not everything needs intervention, that not every gap needs to be filled, that not every outcome needs to be shaped, and most importantly, that your value isn't coming from how much you can hold together. And here's the shift. Not a big one, not dramatic, but a subtle one. Start separating what you can handle from what you actually need to, and then do something uncomfortable. Don't act on the first impulse, that impulse that says, fix it now. Pause just enough to see if the situation actually requires you. Sometimes it will, but sometimes it won't. And that's where things begin to change. Because every time you don't step in, you create space. space for other people to show up, space for things to resolve naturally, space for you to not carry everything. At first, that space will feel wrong, empty, uncertain, but over time it starts to feel like relief. And then something unexpected happens. You realize the world doesn't collapse when you're not holding it together, that people are more capable than you assumed, that support exists even when you're not forcing it, and that you were never actually responsible for everything you were carrying. You were just used to being. And maybe the hardest part to accept is this. No one ever asked you to carry this much. You just learned to, somewhere along the way, being the one who handles everything became your identity. The one who keeps things stable, the one who doesn't drop the ball, the one people don't have to worry about. And you got so good at it that no one ever questioned it, including you. But here's the truth that changes everything. Just because you can hold everything together doesn't mean you're supposed to. Because the moment you stop, even slightly, you start to notice something unexpected. Not everything falls apart. Some things actually improve. People step up, situations resolve on their own, and parts of your life that felt heavy start to feel lighter without you forcing them to. And then there's this moment, a small one, but it hits differently. You're in a situation that normally would have triggered that automatic response. Fix it, manage it, get ahead of it. But this time you don't. You pause, you let it be, and nothing breaks. That's when it clicks. Not in a dramatic, life-changing way, but quietly, almost uncomfortably simple. You realize the pressure you've been feeling all this time wasn't coming from the world. It was coming from the role you never stopped playing. And for the first time, you see that it's optional. Not your awareness, not your capability, just the constant need to use it. And that's where things start to shift. Not because you changed who you are, but because you finally stopped trying to be everything at once. If this felt a little too accurate, there's a reason. This pattern is extremely common among people who are high-functioning and used to carrying more than they show. And it doesn't fix itself automatically. It requires small, intentional shifts in how you operate day to day. That's why I've compiled structured 7-day guides. They're built for this specific pattern: overthinking, mental overload, constant internal pressure to stay in control. Not theory, not abstract advice, just simple daily actions that help you step out of this loop without losing your edge. You'll find them in the description and pinned comment. And if this is the kind of content that actually makes you think differently, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're going much deeper into this.